By the end of this video, you're going to know everything that you need to know to play your first worship song on guitar. You're going to be able to play guitar after this video coming up. Hey, Spencer here from leadingworshipwell.com, the place where we talk about how to lead yourself well, lead your church well, and lead worship well. In this video, I'm going to show you how to play pretty much any worship song that you want on guitar by learning 4 simple chords. I'm going to walk you through from, if you don't know anything about how to play guitar, I'm going to walk you through from that stage of just picking it up. Maybe you had an old one in your closet, maybe you borrowed one from a friend, and you've got to pick, and you're going to sit down and you're going to play guitar. I'm going to walk you through that whole process. So let's get into the essential things that you have to know. Shouldn't take too long. Let's get into it. All right, the first thing that we need to know in order to actually play a guitar is you and I need to have a common language that we can use. You know, learning how to play guitar is in some ways learning a new language, because I'm going to be talking about things that you might not have any idea what they mean. So I need to define some terms first so that we can be on the same page as we go through and actually learn these chords. Number one, we just need to know the names of the guitar strings. So I'm going to put them right here and I'm going to walk through them. I want you to have your guitar with you, and as we go through, I want you to say these string names out loud, because I'm going to be referring to them later. And so it goes like this, right? We've got the first one. This is the string closest to you. This is called an E string. E string. All right. The next string down is the A string. A string. Next one is the D string. D string. Next one is the G string. G string. Next one is the B string. B string. Next one is the E string. E string. All right, so all together, our strings from, in order from closest to you this way to furthest away from you, is an E, A, D, G, B, and an E. All right, so you need to memorize those string names. That's going to be really important as you work your way through your musical career. And by the way, they have those names. If you didn't put it together, that's okay. They have those names because those are the notes that they are whenever they're plucked without any fretted notes on them. So this is an E note, and this is an A note. All right, so that's where the names come from. Now, we can use those string names to tune our guitar, because those are the notes that you want to tune your guitar to. So if you don't have a tuner, I'll link one down in the description below. You can also just get an app on your phone that works perfectly fine as well. Obviously, you're going to want like a real tuner at some point in your life, but an app on your phone works well. Just go to the App Store, type in guitar tuner, you'll find one, and we want to tune them in that order. So if you haven't done that yet, tune your guitar to this order and make sure that it's tuned up so that it matches my guitar. We've got the E. Make sure your E string sounds like that. Then we've got the A. Make sure the second closest to you sounds like this. All right, and so on and so forth. So if you haven't tuned your guitar yet, pause the video and tune your guitar. Super important. All right, now that we have our guitars tuned and we know the string names, the next thing that we need to learn, the next vocabulary, the next word in the guitar language are the frets. All right, and you know what a fret is probably. It's just this metal piece that goes across the guitar like this. So each of those frets gets a number. So behind the first fret, which is where you're going to finger, whenever I say play the first fret, your finger doesn't go on top of the fret. It actually goes just a little bit behind it. All right, so that would be our finger on the first fret, and so on and so forth up the fretboard. Fret 1, fret 2, fret 3, fret 4, fret 5, all the way up to however many frets your guitar has. So that's important because we're going to be using that whenever we talk about chords. Now, the final thing that we need to know in order to play these chords for this worship song are our finger names. All right, you've got your thumb, you've got your index finger, you've got your middle finger, you've got your ring finger, and your pinky finger. All right, we're going to be using these fingers whenever we put our fingers to create a chord on a fret. All right, so we need to have that in common. Pointer finger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky finger. All right, keep that in mind. So now we know the basics of guitar. That was it. Super simple, right? We know the string names, we know the frets and how they're numbered, and then we also know our finger names. Now let's use that knowledge to build our first chord. And whenever I show you a chord, I'm going to show you a diagram that looks like this, all right? And let me explain this diagram for you. Let me explain each part of it. So at the very top of the chord diagram, for example, this one says G, all right? We've got the name of the chord. So you see G, right? And then a little dash and then some numbers after it. So that means that we are playing a G chord. That's why it says G. And then after the dash are a bunch of numbers. Now those numbers correspond to each string on a guitar. All right, there are 6 strings on a guitar. There are 6 numbers right there. So starting from left to right is the string closest to you to the string furthest away from you. So for example, that first 3 right after the G is this E string. And what the number means is the fret that we're going to play it on. All right, so whenever you see a 3 right there, that means that we're going to play the 3rd fret on the E string. All right, now the next one is an X. What does an X mean? Well, that just means that we don't play that string. So we had our 3rd fret on the E string. The next string would be the A string, so we aren't going to play that. There's not going to be a sound coming from that. And then we have a 0. What does 0 mean? Well, that means no frets at all, so that's just an open string. We aren't going to play any frets on there, but we're still going to let the string ring out. So 3, 3rd fret of the E, X, no A string, and then the next one is the D string. Just an open D string. Then we have another 0, which is a G string, which is the next string, and then 3 on the B string, 3 on the E string, and then we have our G chord like this. But you wouldn't know which fingers to use to fret that chord, and that's why we need the diagram below it, which looks kind of confusing, but it's super simple to understand. So let's move to that diagram beneath it. All right, we've got essentially a snapshot of this section of our fretboard right here. That's what you're seeing underneath that G chord. And what you see are some dots with some numbers in them. And each of those numbers corresponds to a finger that you're using. All right. So our index finger is finger number 1. Our middle finger is finger number 2. Our ring finger is finger number 3. And our pinky finger is finger number 4. So just think if you were counting on your fingers, like if you were trying to think of something and you're trying to count to 4, you'd go 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, you wouldn't go 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You go 1, 2, 3, 4. And so those numbers inside the circle represent which finger you are supposed to use to fret that fret. All right, and it just is, like I said, a snapshot of your fretboard. So that first section behind that first line is like the first fret there. Well, actually, the one at the thick one at the top is actually this part up here on your guitar, which is called the nut. But below that, then the next line is the first fret. Then the next line is the 2nd fret, 3rd fret, and 4th fret. And so we're going to use that information to learn our first chord here. And then after we learn that, I'll go through the rest of the chords that you need to learn. So here is the first chord that we're going to learn. All right, get your fingers ready. We are going to follow this chord diagram right here. And what do we have? Well, on the string closest to us, which is the string closest to the left side there, that's our E string closest to us, the top one for us. And we've got the 2nd finger on the 3rd fret right there. See that? All right, so I need you to take your middle finger and place it on the 3rd fret of that E string, the one closest to you this way. Just put your finger down there. Let's get that to ring out. You want to push it down. You don't need to push it down super hard, but you need to push it down hard enough where it's like creating contact with the fretboard. And then you're going to take this hand, which we'll talk about strumming here in a second, but you're going to take this hand and you're going to strum or just pick that note right there. All right, 3rd fret of the string closest to you, the E string. All right, now that you got that, what's next? Well, we look up at the top of the chart and we see there's an X, right? Which means we don't play that A string. So in order for us to do that, we kind of just have our finger like get really fat and just touch the A string. It's not holding anything down. It's just kind of rested against the A string so there's no sound coming out of it. So you just want it to sound like that. This is the 2nd string closest to you, right? No sound. So far we have these 2 notes. All right, let's move on to the next one. It's an open string. You don't see anything on the bottom part of the diagram, but at the top you see a 0. So we're going to play that open D string. That note right there. Let's go ahead and add the next note on top of that, which is the G string. And then on top of that, we've got what? The 3rd fret with our 3rd finger. See the 3 in the circle there? So on that B string, which is way down here, we're going to take our 3rd finger, our ring finger, and put that on the 3rd fret of the B string. And now we've got this note. And then finally, the very top note on the string furthest away from us is another 3rd fret with our 4th finger, or our pinky finger. We're going to sneak that pinky finger in there behind the 3rd finger. And now we've got this note at the very top. Just play that string furthest away from you. And there it is. Now, how do we play a chord? Well, we strum it all together. So go ahead, make sure those strings are held down. You don't need to have like some tight grip on it, but you do need to hold them down just enough so that they make a sound. All right, and then we're going to take our pick, or if you don't have a pick, you can just use your thumb. I'll link some picks that I like down in the description below, along with that tuner that I talked about, and we're going to strum. So just get that feeling under your fingers, all right? You take your pick and you just go down the strings in one swoop, just straight down. All right, you got that feeling. So that is our very first chord. Keep your fingers in that position because we're about to move to our next chord, all right? That is a G chord. Now, let's go to a C chord. How do we get to a C chord? Well, we go from this G chord right here to this. And now we're at our C chord. What do you notice changed between those 2 chords? Go ahead and look at it. Here's the G, here's the C. Here's the G, here's the C. What changes? There's just one note, right? And all we're doing is taking our middle finger from the G chord and we're going to move that down a string this way to the 3rd fret of the A string. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to play this note right here and strum that. All right, so we've got no sound coming out of the E string. How do we do that? Well, you can sort of wrap your thumb around if you want. That's a little bit more advanced maybe. So just focus on not strumming that for now. It doesn't really matter if you do. I mean, it doesn't sound great, but it'll be okay if you play it for now. Just don't do it in the long term. Or you can kind of make this middle finger fat and have it sort of rest against this E string, the string closest to you, and the D string. We want to cut that off too. See, X, 3X is no sound, 3rd fret, no sound. All right, and then the top part of the chord is the same as the G chord, which is just an open G string, 3rd fret of the B string, and 3rd fret of the E string. right? So strum that, get that under your fingers. So there's your second chord. Pretty simple, and all we do to get in between those two chords is just move our fingers. When we transition chords, we don't need to pick up every finger and then go to the next chord. We aren't like, We just move our middle finger down to the next string. All right, so try that. Go from a G chord like this to a C chord like this. All right, don't pick these two fingers up down here. Just move your middle finger back and forth. That's really important. So there were 2 chords. We need to learn 2 more to get to our 4 guitar chords to play any worship song. The next chord that we're going to learn is called an E minor. Keep your fingers in this C position for now. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to leave the top end exactly the same. Keep your ring finger and your pinky finger right where they are, and then we're going to go to this chord shape. All right, so what do you see here? You see an open E string, and then we've got the 2nd fret of the A string, and we're using which finger? Look at the diagram there. There's a 1 in a circle, so we need to use our pointer finger on the 2nd fret of the A string, or the 2nd string furthest or closest to you. This note right here. And then behind that, we're going to sneak our middle finger, our 2nd finger, on the 2nd fret of the string right behind it, the D string. And that sounds like this. And then we don't see any X's on this right here, right? It says 022033, right? 022033, which means it looks like this. And we're gonna play, just strum all of those notes. And when you first start, you're gonna have like fat fingers, and maybe you're like kind of muting some strings. Just try to position your fingers, like rock them back and forth this way, and try to get it so all of those notes, all of those strings ring out. You should be able to pick through the chord one at a time like this, one note at a time. And all of those notes should make a sound. And there is your E minor chord. Now, are you ready for the final chord? It looks like this. This is a hard one, so this is the challenge for you to learn, all right? This is a D chord, and what we're gonna do to get to that is it looks like this, all right? Now, I'm gonna switch back and forth between that E minor and that D, and I want you to look for the one note that's common between the two. So here's an E minor, here's a D. Here's an E minor, here's a D. Here's an E minor, here's a D. So what is the common fretted note between those two chords? Well, it's our ring finger right here on the B string, the 2nd string from the bottom of your set of strings there. That note. So that means that we are not going to pick up our ring finger when we transition to this D chord, all right? And we're gonna pick up the other one. So just practice that, going from this E minor here, and then pick up your 1st finger, your 2nd finger, and your 4th finger, but leave that 3rd one down. Just practice that here first. Put them all down for the E minor. You got them. Now pick them up and leave that ring finger down. All right, now that we have that, we're gonna go to this D chord right here. And what do we see? Well, we see XX, so that means that we aren't gonna play these two notes right here, the E string and the A string. We're gonna start on the D string. Give me a second, there's a train going by. All right, the train has gone by. So we are muting these two bottom strings down here. And we aren't going to use any fingers to do that this time. We're just going to focus on where we strum, so don't worry about muting those with a finger. And then we've got our open D string right here. All right, that's the 0. And then the 2nd fret of the G string with our first finger, or our pointer finger. Remember, we've got our ring finger down on the 3rd fret this whole time. Don't pick that up. So put your first finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. Make sure that note rings out. Then we've already got our 3rd finger on the B string on the 3rd fret. And then we've just got to sneak our middle finger back in there on the 2nd fret of the string furthest away from us, the E string. All right, this one's hard, so make sure you kind of shift your fingers around until you find a position where all of those notes are ringing out. All right, and then you can strum it. Whenever you strum it, just picture in your mind focusing on that 2nd half furthest away from you, that string set down there. You want to just strum those 4 strings furthest away from you. Don't get all of them like this. That doesn't sound good, right? And if you're having trouble, you can wrap your thumb around the fretboard here and just kind of rest it there. We aren't holding the frets down, we're just blocking those notes so they don't ring out. And there's your D chord. All right, so just to recap those 4 chords quickly again, just so you have them, we've got a G chord like this. We've got a C chord like this. We've got an E minor chord like this. And we've got a D chord like this. This is the hard one. All right, so there are our 4 chords. Let's move into the final piece of understanding that we have to play our first worship song. The final thing that we have to talk about now is strumming, right? It's not just about this hand down here, it's also about this hand right here. So you can use a pick, you can use your thumb. If you don't have a pick right now, that's perfectly fine. And we're just gonna practice down strums, which is the first one. So that's just whenever you strum down, bring your pick or your thumb away from the strings, come up to the top again, and just keep that cycle. So it will look like this. We're going to play a G chord. So we're just strumming down. Now, that's one type of strum. The other strum that we can do is the opposite of down, so it would be an up strum or an upstroke, downstrokes and upstrokes. You might have heard that before. So that is just the opposite. Instead of going down, we're going to catch it on the way up like this. And then in order to strum, we can put those two together and we've got down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. All right, so those are our 2 options whenever we're strumming, and then eventually you're going to put those in like a rhythmic pattern, but we aren't going to focus on that right now. I just want you to get these chords under your fingers. The strumming will come naturally to you, so don't worry about that. We've just got... And if you're feeling a rhythm whenever you're strumming, go for it. If you're like... that's fine. Just do strumming. I always feel is something that comes naturally to you over time. It's not something that somebody can sit down and be like down strum, up strum, down, down, up strum, down, like that. I don't think that works. I think it's something that we feel. So get that rhythm in you. That's what you need to know to play a worship song. So let's move into some worship songs that you can learn. All right, I want to give you just a few worship songs that you can learn. Super simple. I'm going to give you 4 here that you can try out. I'm going to link chord charts of them down in the description below. So you're going to have to check those out. In order to read a chord chart, you're going to see lyrics of a song, and then above the lyrics, you're going to see the chord name that you're supposed to play. So for example, we just learned a G chord. and a C chord and an E minor and a D. So in these songs, you're going to see the lyrics, and then above that, you're going to see the chord that you're supposed to play during that part of the song. So for example, one of the songs that we could learn how to play is How Great Is Our God. It's a classic. It would look like this, all right? So we've got the splendor of the King. Now we see an E minor coming up next, so remember in your mind how to play an E minor. I'll also link these chord shapes down in the description below so you have access to them. An E minor looks like this. Clothed in majesty, let all the earth on Joyce, we go to a C. Joyce, there's our C. All the earth rejoice. All right, and you know every chord that you need to play in that song. There's also a D, I think, in the bridge, but you know how to play a D, so you can play that one. Down below, I will also link the song Waymaker, super popular song. It's simple to play with the chords. All you need is a C chord right here. You are here, moving in our midst. I don't feel like singing super high right now. That's a G. We worship you, D. We worship E minor. All right, so you see how you can use these chords to play these songs. Another one you could try, Great Are You, Lord. You give light, you are love, E minor. You give life to the broken, whatever the words are, I don't remember the words right now. That's another one you can use, Great Are You, Lord, or Yes, I Will. D, E minor, C, to G, to a D. I count on one thing, G. The same God who never fails will not fail me now. So you get the picture. All right, I'm going to link chord charts to those in the description below, so check that out. And that's how you are going to learn your song. I'm not going to teach you right now. Now you know everything that you need to know in order to play your first worship song. One final thing before you go, this is kind of important, because just because you know these chords, now you just know how to play it in the key of G. But if you want to play it in a different key, then you're going to need what's called a capo right here. All right, and I'll link this one down in the description below. They aren't too expensive, but what they do is it allows you to change the key of the song, and you don't have to know all of this music theory stuff yet. I just want you to have this available, because if you're trying to play along to a recording and you want to use these chords that I showed you, you can take this, put it on your guitar, and it just sits right behind your frets, just like this, all right? And that's going to allow you to play those same chord shapes that I just taught you, but it's going to change the key of the song. So here is our G chord like this. If we want to play that G chord, but we want to move it up and play it in a different key, let's put it on the 4th fret, which means our capo goes right behind the 4th fret. And now this capo acts like this nut, which I talked about before, of the guitar. So now this fret right here becomes the 1st fret. This fret becomes the 2nd fret. This becomes the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and so on. And so to play a G chord, we would put our fingers like this. I'm not going to explain it too much, but you get the picture. Like that, right? And now we're playing these chords. To a C, an E minor, to a D, back to a G. All right, so there are your chords. So you can use that if you want to, if you're listening to a song and you see like these chords, or maybe it says on the chord sheets that you find, it says like capo 2. That would mean put your capo on the 2nd fret. So that it's useful if you want to play a song in the original key, and then also if you want to sing along, but a song's like too high or low, you can use your capo, move it around, and find a new key that works for your singing. So that's why I pointed out a capo. there it was. I hope that was helpful. Leave questions down below if you are learning guitar and you want to learn more of this stuff. I'd be up for doing some more beginner guitar videos like this. I do advanced guitar videos, but I haven't done beginner guitar videos before. I'm just trying to get people into playing guitar and leading worship because I think it's super fun. So yeah, check that out. Also, I linked in the description below to the chord diagrams that you learned in this video, so you can get those. If you're a worship leader and you want to improve your overall worship leading, I put together a free audio training called 5 Tips to Instantly Improve Your Worship Leading as well, which are just tips on worship leading, not on the musical side of things, but like the practical side of worship leading. So check that out in the description as well. Tons of free stuff down there. Make sure to check out the description. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me today. I know this was a long one, but I wanted to teach some beginner guitar. Until I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.